George grew up 12. Now, matter of fact, he lived directly across from 12 office. Now, you people that are under 50 haven't got a clue where I'm talking about. And the people over 50, which is most of us, know exactly where I'm talking about, right? Anyway, George grew up 12. And from an early age, he was involved in sports. As a matter of fact, if it was a team sport, George was playing. From baseball to hockey to soccer, and certainly basketball. And he exemplified a natural ability in athletics at an early age. Mike Kennedy mentioned that back in the mid-50s, Little League was very active here in Waterford. Every district had teams, and it was a big deal. You had to try out for Little League teams. Now, Little League was set up mostly 10 to 12. And your big hitters and your pitchers were 12-year-olds because they could whip the ball in. Anyway, George Hughes' first year in Little League, he pitched a no-hitter. That's his first year, so he was only 9 or 10 at the most. The only reason I know that fact, because I was one of the 11 and 12-year-olds that he struck out many times that day. I was on the other team. George attended Central School, and he graduated with a leadership scholarship for the highest marks in the class of 1964. During these years at Central, now listen to this, most of us growing up in Waterford, we consider ourselves lucky if we were on one Nova Scotia championship team. During these years at Central, George was on none less than 6 that I can count, and there's probably more. These include the following. He was on 2 Nova Scotia Headmasters Soccer Championships. He was on 2 Nova Scotia Headmasters Basketball Championships. He was on at least 1 Maritime Baseball Championship. And he was a member of the Canadian National Juvenile Basketball Championship team, which we inducted last year, and who are inducted in the Nova Scotia Hall of Fame. So, we in Waterford, we knew of George's ability while he was living here in Waterford. But it wasn't until he went to Dalhousie that the rest of the Maritimes learned of George Hughes' athletic ability. A few years ago, 2008, I think it was, Dalhousie recognized George for his community involvement and especially for his athletic abilities at the university. And in that address, the following statistics were given. During his 4 years at Dalhousie, George was a starter in every game he played. He was the MVP of the team in 1965. He repeated as MVP in 1966, and he had the highest free throw average in the league. And most notably, George finished his university career with the most points in the history of Dal's men's basketball up to that point. I mean, it's little wonder Dal had a special night to recognize him. Following his time at Dal, he continued to achieve notoriety in several sports at the senior level. In the Blue Nose Classic was it's a top-level senior basketball tournament in the Maritimes. In the Blue Nose Classic, George was selected as an all-star several years. In that particular tournament, he was the scoring champ. He holds the record for the most points in a single game and the most points in a series. In 1969, he was a member of the Canadian national team. This is the national team now, and they played in the Pan Am Games. In 1970, he was a member of the Waterford Strands, as Mike mentioned, the team which we honored last year, and which just this spring was inducted into the Cape Breton Sports Hall of Fame. Now, besides basketball, George played on Nova Scotia provincial teams in several other sports. In soccer, he was a member of the Nova Scotia men's provincial team. In baseball, he was a member of several Nova Scotia teams that participated in national championships. He's also a member of the Nova Scotia baseball team that played in the Canada Summer Games. In fastball, he won the batting championship in the Nova Scotia Fastball League, and he was a member of the Keats team that won the Maritime Fastball Championship. George is now retired after a successful career with the Halifax School Board as a teacher and administrator. He remains actively involved in volunteer endeavors, none the least of which he still coaches basketball at King's University. Now, besides George's natural athletic ability and his strong work ethic, anybody who knows or played with George will attest to his spontaneous sense of humor. He has got a funny sense of humor. I'm going to end with a personal story on George's sense of humor. I played with George 1 year, but before Beck opened, there was 3 high schools in town. Everybody knows this, but there was only one grade 12. So after St. Agnes, I went to Central for grade 12, and I was on the basketball team, and George noticed the fact that I was the only Catholic on the team, and he used to remind me of that, and he told me I was Red Bob's token Catholic. Anyway, we were playing a game over Glace Bay, Knox Hall in Glace Bay one night. I think it was a senior game because Freddie Mills was involved, and I don't know if he was on the other team or if he was refereeing. But anyway, we were behind 1 point, and I was fouled just as the final whistle. And so that was the situation. We were behind 1 point, but I had 2 foul shots. Okay, I think I tried to fake an injury so as we could get George to take them. But Freddie Mills knew the difference, and so I ended up taking the foul. Well, everybody knows what happened. We lost. So we're sitting in the change room over there in Knox Hall afterwards, and the strongest language I used in those days, instead of cursing, was curses heck. I was sitting there lamenting, curses heck, if I only made one of those, curses heck, if I only made one of those shots. Finally, George got exasperated, and he said, for blank's sake, Timmins, and he didn't say blank. He said, will you curse and get it over with? So the next thing you know, Red Bob said, Mr. Hughes, can I talk to you? Okay. Anyway, George, I felt bad because I felt I got George in trouble. Anyway, George came back in the change room, never said a word. All the way home, never said a word. Never said a word the next day in school. We get to the next practice, and Red Bob gave us a real good workout, and we're in the little change room down there, locker room down at Central after the practice, and George is always the last one off the floor, and he comes in and he sits beside me, and just when everything got quiet, he said, curses heck, that was a hard practice. I don't think he wants to become a Catholic. I think he was crapping on me. Anyway, it's my personal opinion that in my generation, if you were making a list of the natural athletes to come out of our community, George Hughes would be on my short list. Would you please welcome George Hughes?
Thank you very much, and to the Heritage Society, thank you very much too. You're doing a wonderful job. A couple of things. A lot of people that I grew up with and played with have been mentioned tonight. And I'm really happy about that, because I'll tell you what, when you go away, you can't take New Waterford out of the boy. It lives on with you forever. And I had so many fond memories. But I do have to make one apology, and I'll do this, and my wife's sitting there and she knows. I said, there's going to be a lot of Catholics there. But I said, there'll be a lot more Protestants I've ever seen in the KOC. But I had, about 3 years ago, I was out in the front yard in Halifax mowing the lawn. I got this cold chill. Jeez, I went in the house, and my wife said, what's the matter with you? And I said, I think the Lord is moving in mysterious ways. She said, what do you mean? I said, I was thinking about all my Catholic buddies up 12, and they'd go to confession, and I'd go in the back of the church, and on the pegboard in St. Agnes Church, if somebody lost their prayer beads, they put them there. And I'd steal them, and we'd go downtown, and we'd sell them, go to matinee, get pop and popcorn and everything else. And I said, I haven't thought about that in 40 freaking years, and here I am thinking, I get this cold chill. It was a wonderful place to grow up in. And I'll tell you, when I just look around, there was Billy Burns sitting right there. Dave McDonald, he's a lawyer and he's in Vancouver, just moved there now. But in about 10 years running, 3 of us from the Waterford. Started with Dave McDonald, and then I became captain, and then Billy became captain. 3 of us were captains of the Dalhousie basketball team. This small town, what an amazing feat that kind of thing should happen. And I have to say that the whole thing about Waterford was built on the people who went before us, and you heard stories about them tonight. Those were the people that meant something, because they gave back. And we never forgot that. As much as I hate to say something nice about Carl Marsh, I have to, because Carl, for me, was an inspiration. He and Red Ball McDonald, and all the great coaches, and in baseball, fastball, basketball, you name it. I mean, a guy like Carl Marsh would call me and say, you know, you got to work on this, you got to work on that. And I'm in high school, so what's this guy talking about? But he was absolutely right. He gave back. Guys like Mike Roberts in baseball gave back, and that was a key to any success that I certainly had. Because when I went there to play at Dalhousie, you go in and you're nervous as hell, because here you are, this little Protestant Duncan, going into Dalhousie, and these guys you're playing against are coming from big cities and big programs, and you know what? I was just as well prepared, if not better prepared, than those guys were. And coming from the Waterford, I was freaking tougher, eh? So guys like Carl, goes a long way, and I'm so appreciative. It's so good to be home. I come home every chance I get anyway. It's the only people I can beat in golf are my 2 brothers. So I come home especially to play with them. And I play left-handed. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you.